So I am a school teacher, and of course that gives you no shortage of stories. But this is not a story about my students, but I need to introduce something first. Right now I'm teaching ninth graders the Odyssey. And part of teaching the Odyssey is teaching the hero's journey. For those of you who aren't aware of the hero's journey, it was put out in a book by Joseph Campbell called The Hero of a Thousand Faces. And it's this crazy idea that most of the stories that we tell, going all the way back to Homer, including Shakespeare, we're talking about Macbeth and Romeo and Juliet, we're talking about modern movies like Star Wars and The Wizard of Oz or Harry Potter, are really all the same story, with minor details changed. So my story today is a hero's journey. And I'm going to take you through it. The hero's journey always starts with a normal person. They're not special, and they're just hanging out at home. This is Dorothy in Kansas. This is Luke Skywalker, moisture farmer on a desert planet. This is Harry Potter, a kid who lives underneath a cupboard. There's nothing special about them, and I was just a college student living out my life at Towson University. Now, our hero in the hero's journey receives a call to adventure. Something calling them out to an adventure. You know, this is Harry Potter's letter saying that he wants to go to Hogwarts. And for me, it was a phone call from my girlfriend. She had gone on a vacation and called me incredibly stressed. She said, I have had a horrible night. I'm stressed out beyond belief. I need you to come to Ohio to help me out. Now, part of the hero's journey is refusing the call. And I did. I lived up to this part of the hero's journey. I said, I've got to work tomorrow. I've got classes. I can't come. And she said, you don't understand. I slept last night in my car in a church's parking lot to try and save money. And I woke up and the parking lot was full of police officers and they found a dead body in the woods next to the church. I need you. So this was Obi-Wan, you're my last hope. Right? And I had, as many young men do, a little bit of a superhero complex. I wanted to save the damsel in distress. My students would call this being Captain Save-A-Ho. So I jump in my car, and this is the moment where the tornado hits, and Dorothy gets flown off into a fantastic land. This is where the hero crosses a threshold into a different world, because I'd never been to Ohio. And this was way before the time when you had a GPS. I'm working with a map that I had to unfold. So I'm off on this great adventure into a strange new land. I get to Ohio, I save the princess, I calm her down. Now the next part of the hero's journey, the hero meets some allies and has some minor tests and trials. And they usually find a wise mentor, somebody who teaches them important lessons. This is Dumbledore, this is Gandalf, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi. And my wise mentor was Lewis Noah. Lewis Noah was a friend of mine that I knew from when I lived in Illinois. I had just moved from Illinois about 2 years earlier. He was the father of one of my friends, and he literally played Santa Claus at Christmas. He looked the part of the wise mentor. And he had just moved to Ohio. So I called him up and I said, Lou, I'm in Ohio. What are you up to? He said, oh my God, Matt, come on out. And he took us out and he gave us food. He gave us nourishment. He gave us a place to stay. He took us on some minor adventures, but he also pointed me on the next point of my path, because as we were reminiscing about Illinois, I realized how much I missed my home. This was where I grew up. This is where I learned to ride a bike. It's where I learned to use a spoon. My whole life was from Illinois. And he said, Matt, wouldn't it be great to show your girlfriend where you grew up? I said, that's a great idea, Lewis. So he sends me off on the next step to my adventure, which I didn't know was the next step of the hero's journey, which is approaching the innermost cave. This is where the hero meets their nemesis, the big obstacle that they have to overcome. And my innermost cave, I called one of my friends from Illinois, great friends. I'd spent some time actually living in their house briefly. And I said, hey, I'm coming up. I'd love to see you. They said, oh my God, come for dinner. I said, I've got a friend with me. They said, bring them along. So we show up. My girlfriend's at my side, and I knock on the door, and I'm expecting to see Mr. Debates open the door or Mrs. Debates open the door, but instead, my ex-girlfriend opens the door. She does not live there. And it took exactly one look from her to me for me to realize she was still in love with me, which was a problem because it took one look from her to me from my girlfriend to realize she was still in love with me. So I went in, and it was like a play by Pinter or Chekhov where everything that's said doesn't matter. It was everything that wasn't said. My ex-girlfriend's telling about her first couple of years of college, but she's really telling me she needs time alone with me, and she's telling this other woman, you're not good enough for him. My current girlfriend tells them the story about how we met, but she's really telling them, oh no, girl, she's mine, back off. And it gets so tense until right before dinner, and this is the part in the story where the hero is battling their nemesis and they lose. This is Luke Skywalker getting his arm cut off. My girlfriend says, hey, I need the keys. We brought one car. And as I'm handing them over, I said, where are you going? She said, I'm going to see a friend. I knew darn well she didn't have a friend within 500 miles. And she leaves me alone. And there's a point in the hero's journey where the hero dies or almost does, and that's how I felt. Because I'm left here, I don't care. Don't ring me again. You can't stop the hero's journey in the middle, you know? So I'm left alone. And finally, we get left alone, and she's telling me how much she misses me. And I'm telling her, no, I'm very much in love with this old other person. And then she brings out the kryptonite and starts crying. This is the darkest moment for our hero, when all hope is lost. And then finally, there's some kind of a light that comes. And I saw a light. And the light was coming from a shadow. My Dodge shadow coming back into the driveway. My girlfriend had returned. And she came in. She quickly assessed the situation. And she saved me. Because she said, hey, I've got a headache. We need to get out of here. Can we go back to the hotel? Sure. So the princess winds up saving me in the end. So the last step of the hero's journey, they always return home. But they come home with a treasure, with a prize, with an elixir, something that changes everything. The world's never quite the same after this journey. And as we were going home, I realized that there is no place like home. And mine most definitely was no longer in Midwest Illinois.